Hello friends, this is Fox Nival Studios. Today we are here with second part, what if Naruto was the Ghopire? Crossover between Naruto and High School DxD. Now let's begin the chapter. School. Apparently, this world had a different and more age-based school standard for kids and teens to go to schools. Rias and Akeno, who were almost 18, were third years. Yuto, who was 17, was a second year. Finally, a year younger than Yuto was Kaneko, who at 16 was a first year. Kaneko is very stated to be 15. That is a fan guess. Gaspar's body was 16, which Naruto did not know for a fact, but he suspected Gaspar was on the young side. It was highly disappointing to him to know that Gaspar was a middling teen and not a younger teen. That meant his body wouldn't grow nearly as much as he would like in the future, but he could deal with it. How did you get these high scores? Rias asked Naruto, since she only ever saw him train. He never studied or did anything but train, yet when she gave him a mock test to enter Kuo Academy with the rest of them, he not only aced all of the questions, but he did so very impressively. Mathematics. 100A Japanese. 100A Social Studies. 100A Science. 87B English. 76C. He had scored the primary subjects with scores that were better than her own. Despite how goofy he seemed he could be, his academic studies seemed to be above that of a teenager. I was literally a diplomatic military leader, and I led my country into greatest period of technological, social, and cultural growth. Naruto wasn't super book smart, but if it was just high school level stuff, then he wouldn't even struggle after all of the work he had to do when ruling a country. Science was a bit more of a problem once you got past the basics, but there were enough basics in the test that he was able to pass it without too much trouble. He picked up English when he walked around Europe. That was about it, and history was just something you needed. You should join me as a third year then. Nah, first year will work fine. Less work to do, more time to train. Naruto figured if he was going to have to go to school, then going to the easiest grade for him would be best. He didn't imagine he would struggle too much with any grade, but at least if he went for the first year position, he would be able to coast through school on the knowledge he already had, and then just kind of spend as little time focusing on academics as possible. Rias didn't see a flaw in this. She wanted her peerage to get good grades, but if this mock test was any indicator, then she knew he wasn't going to have trouble. Good education was one of the ways that helped you pass promotion tests to raise your devil rank. As it stood, on an education standard, he was already in the ballpark of her high-class brethren. All he would need to know to pass a promotion exam on knowledge would be devil culture's history. Months later, seems decent. Naruto inspected a shadow blade that he created. It was durable enough to use in a fight, but wasn't all that sharp either. He had upped his training on manipulating shadows, and had been working on transforming parts of his body into animals. Bats seemed the easiest thing to transform parts into. He was getting the hang of these vampire abilities at least, but shadow controlling was the one he wanted to work on the most. It was the single ability that took the greatest magic power control, which was what he needed most. Why make a sword? Well, I'm pretty good with them overall. I'm not Sasuke or Tenten, but I'm competent with most weapons, and swords are useful for offense and defense. Naruto explained to Gaspar. He preferred to use his fists or ninjutsu, and while he had no talent for genjutsu, he made sure to learn to notice them and dispel them. When it came to fighting as a ninja, he had no true weakness, or one area that he specifically put all of his training effort into. One could say he was a taijutsu, ninjutsu specialist, but that was only half true, since it was more akin to the fact that he just outclassed those around him. He didn't specialize in anything, but was talented in putting what he did know to good use. I guess I should start making my own pervy magic, Naruto hummed in thought. Gaspar looked at him. Why? Perverted techniques are the most useful, because they are the least expected. Take your opponent by surprise for even a single second, and you have an advantage. I once saved the world using pervy techniques. Naruto grinned as he remembered the feeling of punching a goddess after tricking her. Wow. Is it okay to be skipping class for this? Gaspar asked as Naruto dropped the sword. It vanished into their shadow, but Gaspar could feel it still existed. There was a very pregnant moment of silence as Naruto tried to think of a way to make a perverted technique, before a light lit up in his eyes. He ran his hand along a tree. Akeno said that the way to use magic is by turning raw magic into something with imagination. So, if I have a mental image and enough control, I should be able to do this, Naruto stated as he kept up a strong mental image, and he created a small enough of sparks between his fingers. They were barely even noticeable. Ah, there you are. Ah, just in time. Can I test this technique out on you? Naruto asked Rias when she approached him. She just raised an eyebrow. You skipped school today. I was training. Can I test this technique out on you? It won't kill you. Naruto promised her, since he wanted her express permission. She looked at his hand, and saw the electric fields between his fingers. She looked at them seriously, as if considering saying yes. What does it do? Scrambles electrical signals in the body. I want to test to make sure I got it right though. Naruto tapped Rias on the arm. Ow! Static shock. Rias dropped to her knees, unable to control her body properly. Naruto looked at her, but when she tried to move her jaw to talk, all that ended up happening was the fingers on her left hand moving around instead. She tried to move her arms to stand up, but her toes flexed instead, and her facial muscles twitched. My body isn't obeying me at all. No, it is obeying me, but the signals are confused, Rias realized as she tried to move everything. Nope. Dang. I wanted to scramble your pleasure and pain signals, heighten pleasure and dull pain. Naruto could see that his mental image had been only halfway strong enough. He was basing the technique on Tsunade's body pathway derangement, but since that was what he was basing the technique on, and what he was using as a mental reference, he had got that effect instead of the effect he had been going for. It was a medical technique from his world, but it seemed even easier to recreate with magic than through the process of studying medicine. Well, he knew how the human body worked pretty well anyway. What happened to her? Ghopire asked with concern. She'll be fine, her body's signals are all scrambled. It will wear off after a little bit, or she can relearn her body's movements. Naruto explained as he took his hand and touched it to himself, scrambling his own body's signals as well. Rias looked at him, and she saw him moving his body around as he experimented with what parts of his body did what. He stood back up after a small amount of time, showing that he had relearned how his body worked. Wow. It isn't that hard. As a ninja, you have to quickly learn how to transform. When you transform, you need to learn to move your body to match your new form. Relearning your body isn't as hard as learning an entirely new form. Naruto created more sparks between his fingers and touched Rias. She was able to move things correctly again, and she stood up, dusting herself off. With chakra techniques, you needed knowledge and practice. Seems with magic, you need imagination and knowledge. Might be why I'm struggling a bit. The concept of it, and the way it feels is different. Naruto mumbled to himself. Chakra techniques started with the knowledge of what you wanted and how the chakra would need to act to make it happen. Then it came to the ability to follow through. Finally you needed practice to utilize it. Magic seemed to start with not knowledge, but imagination. It needed a strong and stable mental image to follow through. Finally, you needed to practice keeping a consistent mental image. So, this was based off a different technique. Scary? Rias asked. The ability to touch your enemy, and rob them of the ability to properly control their body was a terrifying ability. Scary. Any skilled ninja would be able to figure out how to fix themselves up pretty quickly, and if you have teammates to cover you, it isn't too threatening. Naruto didn't see it as such. It could be dangerous if you were alone, but it lacked the shock factor that a distraction had. There were able techniques that could be used without full control of your body. Rias didn't see it that way. It might seem like a simple thing to Naruto, but it was a devastating technique that could turn the flow of battle completely. Experience. He has lived a life where he has truly experienced the battlefield. He has seen so many different techniques. He just casually created a technique that could cripple hand-to-hand fighters. Rias didn't even know where to begin trying to replicate the technique he made. Her imagination wasn't strong enough for her to imagine how the technique would or should work. It only worked for Naruto, because his strong mental image came with his own experiences. She wondered what other treasure troves of experience could he provide for her. Okay, instead of thinking about Granny's technique as a base, I'll imagine just the effects, and how I want the effect to work, and I will avoid thinking of anything else. Naruto focused all of his imagination on the technique itself. Sparks showed around his fingers again, and this time he touched her on the arm. Rias felt a pleasurable tingle on her arm that spread up about 6 inches, and she shivered when she felt a small breeze go over her arm. It was a pleasurable feeling that was almost distracting in nature. Naruto sighed. As far as perverted techniques go, not flashy enough. It's gotta be something shocking. That really packs a punch. Pack a punch. Naruto paced back and forth, ignoring Rias, but she didn't mind. She just sat down and decided to shut up, and see how his thought process was going to end. This was both amusing, and she could see it was being educational. Naruto hummed. He formed his hands into a heart shape, and Rias watched as magical power gathered between the heart-shaped gap in his hands. Fem beam. Naruto shot a beam of magic power out of the heart shape, and it struck a boulder. Rias watched as the boulder glowed, before it changed shape. It became a boulder, shaped like a beautiful, petite, girl. Penis. Ha 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 ha. Fembeam, like femboy. The idea struck me. Gasper looks like a girl, despite being a boy. Hey. We look like a girl. Exactly, which inspired this technique. Shoot somebody with this beam, turn them into a trap. Naruto spoke with Gasper and ignored Rias. Since the boulder was not a living object, it just took the shape. Rias palmed her face. That won't work well against a living thing. No, but it is a great scare tactic to distract them. Also, look at this. I can bet you money that some degenerate would love to buy this boulder. Naruto looked at the boulder again. And spend a ton of money. Smooth out the edges. Give it a paint job, and put a cute outfit on it, and it will just be a life-size figurine. Naruto explained. Rias didn't say a word. I would buy that. Rias mentally admitted. Naruto was on the goofy side, but it would appear that his experiences in life had given him a very powerful imagination, and a huge pool of techniques that he could take inspiration from. Speaking of cute clothes, we should wear them. Gasper. Why would we wear girls' clothes? The only reason we would want to do that is to take advantage of our cuteness to confuse people, or get girls to drag us into the women's dressing room. Naruto stopped and seriously consider it. Second life. He was never going to the afterlife to be with Hinata, so he might as well try and find a woman to be with in this life. Also, he had been loyal to Hinata in his first life and in his afterlife, so this was his chance to make a new life for himself. If he allowed his attachments to his old life to dictate how he lived his new one, he would be disgracing his old life by letting it control him. So. Pros. We look cute, girls will adore us, we can prank people. Cons. Dressing like a girl is a little weird, not very manly. And skirts don't go well with boxers. Panties are an option. Zip it, Rias. This is between me and Gasper. Naruto raised a hand to stop Rias from speaking in this private conversation. He sat down as Gasper's form came off the ground and sat in front of him. Rias had an extremely biased opinion. Rias loved cute stuff, so she was biased. I want to see you wear cute clothes though. Gasper complained. We look cute in cute clothes, and I'm in our shadow. At least give me something cute to look at. Gasper moved around and complained. Naruto hummed, and felt some guilt. He would consider that. He wanted to make Gasper happy too after all. Nothing was more petty than a god scorned. The Shinigami had been scorned by the Uzumaki clan many times, and just because he got his revenge didn't mean that he was done getting revenge. Gods did not believe that any mortals should get away with just being punished. They needed to suffer. Jinchuriki. Bring me the Jinchuriki. The Shinigami sends his regards, and has offered me my revenge. A giant creature that was unlike anything that had ever been seen by Devil Society before just one day appeared in the middle of the forest. Seraphal Leviathan looked at it with her eyes serious when she saw it standing in the ruined remains of a low-class devil village. Devils who were extra demons not even a part of the 72 pillars, and she saw dozens of corpses piled up in the middle of the village. She was the first to arrive after getting an alert, a distress signal that suddenly vanished for no reason. The entire village was burning to the ground, and tears welled up at the edges of her eyes. A monster. It stood over 70 feet tall, and its body was black. Skeletal in appearance. It had the appearance of a headless monkey's skeleton with black furred skin stretched over the bones, and large featured bird wings. Its body was unnaturally, horrible thin for its size, and its mouth was located on its torso. Opened wide to show the creature had no real internal organs, but large, horrible teeth that were designed for destruction. No eyes. Yet, it looked towards her, turned its body to face her, and she closed her eyes to sense any magical power in the village. None. I'm going to kill you. Seraphal took her wand, and she charged up a large amount of magical power. She swung it. The entire village froze solid, but to her shock, the monster dodged her attack even before she fired it. Where the village froze over, it floated up into the air as if it knew the exact range of her attack, and exactly when she was going to launch it. Pure magical power. Seraphol gathered her magic power in its purest form and raised her wand above her head, before she brought it down and launched a beam out of it. A beam so fast that it crossed the great distance between herself and the monster within a moment. It dodged. It just dodged her attack, and her attack went flying past it, and at a mountain range, blowing the entire mountain range up to smithereens. Seraphol stepped back in shock as it flew at her, and just as fast as her beam had crossed the distance, it too crossed the distance and floated in the air above her. It flapped its wings and hurled a wave of sharpened feathers right at her, faster than she thought that something its size could possibly launch something. Searsex. Hurry up, or Ajuka. This thing. What the hell is it? Seraphol created a wall of ice in front of her. A feather pierced the ice and came feet away from her head, with her eyes widening at the piercing power of the feathers. She looked to her left and swung her arm out of instinct, abandoning her wand in favor of pure power. No holding back. Celsius cross trigger. An icy wasteland was what became the region around her as she activated her strongest technique, with such a wide radius that she had no doubt that it couldn't dodge her. Her icy wall expanded in size, and she covered a small county's worth of land in ice, with parts of her own body being covered in frost as well. Cold. But you missed. How? How did I miss? Seraphol watched as the monster floated down, having seemingly dodged every single pillar of ice that formed, and even the cold itself. Its breath was hot enough to be visible from even behind the large wall of ice between her and the monster. Seraphol summoned her wings and flew up above the wall. A red ball went flying at her the second her head was above the wall, and she flew to dodge it, before she saw the monster flew in front of her, waiting for her. The red ball hit a mountain when it missed her, and turned the mountain into a crater. What was this thing? It's fast, and agile. This thing is way faster than anything its size should be, and how can it dodge everything I send at it? Seraphol placed both of her hands in front of herself. She summoned dozens of fireballs instead of ice, and rained them down towards the monster. It flew, and its agility was unreal as it managed to fly between the fireballs, despite its size. She destroyed huge portions of ice and frozen forest, but she was unable to so much as scratch her agile enemy. She slapped her forehead and placed a mind-reading block on herself. You think your protections will stop me from reading your heart? Seraphol felt her heart skip a beat when it spoke of what she did, and how futile it was. She calmed herself and kept throwing spell after spell at it, if only to keep it dodging her attacks. She flew and dodged the feathers it sent her way, but that was a challenge. It sent so many of them, and it seemed to always know where she was going to dodge. She would lose the long-range battle if this kept up. It doesn't just predict my attacks before they happen, it predicts where I'm going to be before I'm even there. Seraphol stopped firing spells for a moment so that she could focus completely on dodging. The feathers were huge, and they should have been easy to dodge, but there was no end to them, and they were all launched with pinpoint accuracy. She felt one of them tear the shoulder of her outfit, and wound her deep enough to get a small cry of pain out of her. And it's getting more accurate. What the hell is a Jinchuriki? What is this thing even looking? Seraphol gasped in shock. Her vision was blocked as it dodged the distance between them and reached out for her, its hand blocking her sight. It was unbelievably fast. She flew between its fingers as it gripped at her, and went point-blank range as she charged up her magical power and transformed it. She pointed at it from a zero-distance range. Gotcha. She fired her ice magic at it, but it just flipped and twisted its body, dodging her attack, even at point-blank range. Searsex, please hurry up. I'll even accept Ajuka or the lazy general. I don't know how long I can keep this thing preoccupied. The monster mocked her with her thoughts, what she was thinking deep inside of herself. She flew away from it and created enough distance that she could resume a battle of range. She kept her eyes on it, never letting it out of her sight or else be shocked by an attack she couldn't predict. Where could such a strong beast appear from, and how it is reading my heart? You're not my target, devil woman. The monster roared with laughter as it mocked her. I'm not just a devil woman, I'm the strongest female devil. I am magical girl Seraphol. And stop reading my mind, it's an invasion of privacy. I don't need to read your mind. The darkness in your heart is more than enough. The creature pointed a finger at her. Gotcha. Serafal pointed both of her hands up, and pillars of ice shot out of the frozen ground and went towards the monster. The second she was sure it dropped its guard, but instead, she was stunned when it created a red energy ball with its hand-like feet, and smashed the pillars, before putting a large crater in the ground. It seemed to frown at her. The shattered remains of the ice it shattered floated around it, before Serafal turned them into spears and aimed them at it from all angles. Dodge this. It flapped its wings and sent feathers at every single shard of ice, destroying them all, before it swept its hand and knocked away the broken remains. It flew directly towards her, and she charged up a spell in front of her. It swatted her. Its hand came out at her faster than it should have, and she felt an immense and powerful pressure behind the attack as she slammed into the frozen ground hard enough to shatter her own ice, and several of her bones. Her body became the center of a crater, and blood came out of her mouth. I hoped a dead village would lure the Jinchuriki out, but it seems like maybe the strongest female devil would be better bait. Can't move away. Broke my wings, and I've both my legs and my arm broke. And several ribs for sure. Serafal raised her hand and summoned enough strength to make the ice around her grow, and shoot out like frozen hands towards the monster. It dodged her attacks though and created distance between them. She grinned as blood leaked down her face, and she saw one of her own ice chunks had pierced through her shin. Talk like that after you've killed me, because magical girls don't stop fighting until we die. Serafal closed an eye when her own blood covered half of her face completely. How could something with such skinny arms in comparison to its size pack so much a punch? Because she felt like she just had a mountain slammed on top of her. It turned away from her. A huge sphere flew towards the monster, a sphere of destructive magic unlike what Serafal was capable of. It was fast enough that it almost hit the monster, but still the creature dodged the attack as if it had known it was coming. More bats come flying to the slaughter. Serafal. Ajuka landed next to her, while Sirzex landed in front of them, with another sphere of destruction charged up. You guys came. Of course, there was no way we could miss you using that attack. How did you not kill it with your ultimate move? Sirzex had a feeling he was about to get his answer. He created dozens of spheres and launched them all, but somehow, the monster was able to weave through them all. He placed a mind-reading block on himself, but his eyes widened when the creature still read him and dodged his attacks. He raised both arms above his head, and created a mountain size of demonic power, and he swung his arms down. It moved out of the way. Something that big. Can't be that fast. Ajuka watched as it swung its wings and started to do calculations. Sirzex easily destroyed the feathers that came their way, but he couldn't do much more than defend and launch attacks. He glanced back at Ajuka, who lifted up Serafal, and carefully held her so that she wouldn't be in too much pain. Be careful. Despite its appearance, it's fast. It's faster than anything I've ever seen before, and if it hits you, one good hit and consider your body broken. I think it can see the future. That is how it always knows our next move. Serafal gave Sirzex her best guess on how the monster could dodge all of their attacks. I'll unleash my true form that you have no control of. Yes, spread wanton destruction, but no matter how destructive your attacks become, you will never be able to hit me, and eventually, you will run out of magic. The monster spoke. That alarmed everyone. How did it know that? Simple. I can read your hearts. You will never be able to make an attack I can't predict, no matter how fast or strong you are. There have only ever been 3 people who have managed to touch me, and they aren't you. Guess I'll be the 4th, Sirzex stated with a dipping frown. He's already dodged my fastest attack, and he dodged Serafal's largest attack. Can I really hit him? Stop that. Sirzex hated that the monster was getting that. The monster grinned. Go ahead Ajuka, analyze me. But my power is a power that you can't even comprehend. My revenge against the Jinchuriki who defeated me once before. The Shinigami's revenge. I know all your abilities, all your thoughts. Everything you will do, I already know it. You can't touch me. The monster kept dodging all of Sirzek's continuous attacks just to prove a point that he could dodge them. Get her out of here. Gotcha. Ajuka flew off, and left Sirzex in the destroyed frozen wasteland by himself with the monster. The monster allowed them to leave without attacking them. Bring me the Jinchuriki Sirzex, bring him to me. Bring me my prey, and your son, your wife, your parents, and your sister will never become my targets. You can't hit me, and you can't risk your true form. You can't control it properly. You can't risk running out of magic. The monster raised a hand. He lifted up 3 fingers. I will halt my destruction for 3 months. Bring me the Jinchuriki in 3 months, and I will be gone from this world." The monster grinned sadistically, but Sirzex kept attacking and not giving it a chance to launch too many of its own attacks. "Oh come on Sirzex, I don't tire. I don't need food, or sleep, or to restore my stamina. I can keep fighting forever with no rest. You will soon run out of power. My deal is not a bad one." The monster raised its hand again. Sirzex narrowed his eyes in anger, and just increased the number of spheres he was controlling to attack the monster. Even the growth in number didn't bring him any closer to landing a hit. "You won't keep your word." "Ah, but I have no choice, for I can only remain in this world until the one who summoned me gets his revenge. Why would I lie, when I can just wait for you to exhaust yourself? And kill you when you're exhausted." The monster raised a point. Sirzex frowned. "I've already used a small chunk of magic. At this rate, it will only be hours before I run out." Sirzex kept attacking. Attacking was the best defense. He stopped attacking. "How will I be able to find this Jinchuriki? He will be the only one who reacts to that word. I do believe this world lacks that term. 3 months. But keep my existence a secret." He's afraid. He doesn't want this Jinchuriki thing to know he's here and give him time to prepare. He came here and attacked a devil village. So this Jinchuriki must be among my people. Why 3 months? Why yes, I am afraid of the Jinchuriki. But that knowledge will do you no good, and why 3 months you ask? I don't think it should take you too long to find him. I can keep fighting. But I don't know how he keeps reading me, so I can't hit him. Well thought boy. I am Satori, the monster who roamed the world during the era of the Six Paths Sage himself. Ah. This world doesn't know who that is. I see. Then I will wait right here. Days later, my formula can't calculate it. I've never seen anything like it, and this energy is foreign to me. Ajuka apologized. His powers would be of no use against this monster, but he could research and try and figure out some sort of plan. We obviously can't give it this Jinchuriki person. I agree. Falbium didn't see any good coming from agreeing to the demands of a monster. We can gather our armies. And do what? It will predict everything we do, and if we are surrounded by out-comrades, we can't use our strongest powers. It can predict everything we do, but we know literally nothing about it that can help us. Are you okay, Seraphal? Sirzex placed a hand on the bandaged-up Seraphal, who had been mostly healed. All that remained were some broken ribs. I'm better. But I agree with Ajuka. For all we know, this Jinchuriki guy knows the secret to beating it. Maybe it just wants the Jinchuriki, so that we can't learn how its secret works. Seraphal could see it invading them again the second that its secret was safe. The more people we get to fight it, the harder it will be for us to actually hit it too. Its body is shaped weird and hard to hit, and large-scale attacks would just hit out people. Seraphal could see this thing destroying armies with more ease than fighting one-on-one. Sirzex nodded. It seems designed to destroy large groups of people. So we should just give it this Jinchuriki, and let the Jinchuriki fight it. This is frustrating. How can something so big, he's so fast and agile? If only I could hit it, I could destroy it. But it really does seem like it can predict the future. Sirzex hated the feeling of going against an enemy that he just didn't know how to hit. It was fast enough to dodge his attacks. It was strong enough that its physical attacks would be finishers. Finally, it seemed to always be able to predict all of his attacks, even surprise attacks. The enemy was simple, but not only could it predict attacks, it could predict their thoughts, so they couldn't trap it either. He could only see fighting the monster ending with him running out of stamina, and the monster finishing him off when he ran out. That or take turns fighting it with his fellow Satans, and when one of them gets exhausted, another one takes their place, and they just keep taking turns. That would only be a temporary solution. Any theories? Ajuka tried to think. It wasn't reading their mind, so how was it reading them so accurately? We can't beat it then. Realistically, we might as well just give up and find this Jinchuriki. Leave this mess to him instead. Watch him fight it, and learn its weakness. Then if it kills the Jinchuriki and vanishes, good for us. If it doesn't vanish, at least we can learn its weakness and kill it ourselves. At the cost of one life. Falbium changed his mind on the course of action he supported. No, veto. Seraphal and Ajuka agreed. I agree. With Falbium. Either way, in the end we can win. Anyway, this Jinchuriki person is just some random. Not our family or our friend. For all we know he's a horrible person too. Sirzex sighed and hated his words. If the monster was telling the truth, he just wants revenge. And we can finish the monster after we learn its weakness, even if it is lying. So we're split down the middle. Serafal slammed her fist against the wall behind her. I hate this. If only I knew how to hit it. Then I could have beaten it by myself. I'll find this Jinchuriki before Sirzex and Falbium, and get him to team up with me. Serafal stared down those who opposed her desires in the room. We don't have an option. Until we know how it reads us, we need to go off the assumption that every plan we make will fail us. We have no information on the enemy, but the second we show up, it knows all our information. It has already won the battle of knowledge. It knows our abilities, how they work, how to dodge them, and how to work around them. We don't even know what kind of energy this thing uses. Ajuka can't fight it with no information. Sirzex can't hit it without using his true form, and even that might not let him hit it. And my power is more defensive. Falbium continued to try and persuade Ajuka and Serafal. And you already lost. I didn't lose. Did you win? Then you lost. Falbium stated clearly for the woman to hear. Listen, it told you guys that 3 people have touched it. That means it does have a weakness, and this Jinchuriki knows it. By giving it the Jinchuriki, we win. Either the Jinchuriki beats it, or we can learn its weakness and beat it ourselves. And it is telling the truth, one life saves many. They continued to argue. Neither side changed their opinion. Sirzex and Falbium on one side. Serafal and Ajuka on the other. Jinchuriki. Rias was confused when her brother told her that word, since she had never heard it before. She didn't often come across Japanese words that she didn't know of, or know the meaning of. She communicated that much with her brother just by the expression on her face, since they were talking through a magical hologram letter. She noted that Naruto perked up. Nobody else in the room seemed to care about the term at all, and she even looked at Akano who was Japanese, who shrugged her shoulders. Naruto's raised eyebrow was the only indication of anyone in the room that he had some kind of clue what Jinchuriki meant. Yes, Serafal and Ajuka are helping me look for some person called a Jinchuriki, while Falbium is going to be busy. If you hear any rumors about it in the human world, please, let us know. Sirzex stated with a light-hearted tone. Rias could tell that he was stressed about something. If you can at least find out what the word means, that would be helpful too. Sirzex tried to stress the importance of the task, without telling her the reason why. She could still see something was wrong, if anything her brother seemed shaken by something. Jinchuriki roughly translates to power of a human sacrifice. Sirzex turned his hologram and looked towards Naruto, who just opened a book with a bored look on his face. Sirzex analyzed Naruto for a moment with surprise. He wasn't the only one, but Rias looked the least surprised by Naruto's knowledge of the subject. Naruto glanced towards Sirzex, before he turned and laid on the couch with his back facing the hologram. Whoops. Naruto thought. He had to open his big mouth. Naruto. What is a Jinchuriki exactly? It's an extremely rude way to refer to somebody when you know their name. Whoever is looking for a Jinchuriki should refer to them by their name, and not Jinchuriki, if they want to meet them. Naruto frowned with his back to everyone, not feeling like revealing himself as the most likely person that they were after. We don't know their name. All we know is we have to find this Jinchuriki, and we have 3 months to do it. Sirzex had now abandoned talking to his sister in favor of directing his conversation towards Naruto. Do you know where the Jinchuriki is? Sirzex asked Naruto, who just glanced back at the man slowly. Why do you want to know? Naruto asked back. There was a silence. That is confidential. So is his location. I'm not putting a dear friend in danger, without a very good reason. Naruto responded without any hesitation. Since he and Gasper were connected, any danger that came for him also came for Gasper. He was not going to put Gasper through anything extremely dangerous without a very good reason. His life was not his own anymore, and he owed it to the Dampire teen to not fuck up his life. This is life or death. Can you just give a hint then? Please Naruto, be reasonable. I'm sure that my brother means no harm towards your friend. Rias tried to be the mediator between her brother and servant. She had no want for them to be in an argument, but she could tell that there was some thick air in the room now. Promise no harm will come to him then, Naruto stated. Sirzex went silent. See? You said 3 months. If that is the time limit, ask me again in 2.5 months. At that point, I'll tell you who he is. If I think you're not going to abuse him. And where did you even learn that word? Naruto asked Sirzex as he realized that the man should have never heard of that term before. As Lucifer. I don't care about your position. The way I see it, somebody told you about that word, but didn't tell you what it meant. So who told you? Naruto asked the man more directly. We don't know what to call it. I see. Yeah. That would explain it then. Let me ask you this. Were they white-skinned, gray-haired? No, So not them. If not them, then maybe a giant multi-headed dragon creature made of dark energy. Help me out here. I'm trying to figure out where you learned that word. Naruto could think of a few people who were dead that might be able to go to this dimension thanks to how they kind of transcended life and death. He could think of the Otsutsuki for one, but with no chakra in this world for them to take they wouldn't bother. Then he could think of Morio, but that monster was dead so it was harder to believe. Possible thanks to how it could reincarnate itself, but less likely. Are you saying there are more things that might be after this Jinchuriki person? My guesses are Ribi, Morio. Possibly Satori if his box got opened up, but that would be unlikely. Nobody would be dumb enough to open Satori's box, and even then they would have to throw a sacrifice into the box. Was this guy wearing a no mask, and looking very tentacly? Naruto asked as he suspected maybe it was the Ribi. Sirzex was even more confused. Who are these guys? Are these people we should be worried about? Sirzex was getting very worried now. Nah, the only. Well, maybe be worried about Morio and Satori. Ribi is only an issue if it possesses a person with or around strong negative emotions. Satori is a big issue. Is the person you heard that term from a giant, black-feathered hell spawn with no eyes, and ugly smile? Yes. Sirzex shouted when Naruto started the description. Well, all of you guys are fucked then. Just evacuate the underworld. How does it read our thoughts and movements? Does it have any weaknesses? Anything that can be used against it? None that you guys can use, and even if you guys kill it, it won't die. Satori is a damn bastard that doesn't die when it's killed, it just returns to its box and abandons its host. Yeah. Just leave this to the Jinchuriki, Naruto stated with a nod. So 3 months to find a way to beat Satori? He was sure he could do that. So it does have a weakness then. You need to tell us, that thing almost killed Serafal, Sirzex stated to the shocked gasps of almost everyone in the room. Not Naruto though, who had no clue who he was talking about. Wait. It can't be killed? Yep, can't be killed, and there isn't a devil that can beat it. Even Rias here, a prime example of the kindest of your species, wouldn't be able to avoid its ability. Naruto gestured to Rias, who took compliment to the praise. I take it that Satori dodged all of your attacks, and managed to read your thoughts? Yes. No matter how fast your attacks, or how many of them you fired at him. Yes. Devils naturally hold dark negative emotions in their hearts and souls, it's as simple as that. At the same time. And your very magical abilities are fueled. The power of destruction is dependent on killing intent to work properly. So you can't beat Satori. I'm sure the Jinchuriki will fight Satori in 3 months, don't worry about it. But just in case, prepare to evacuate. Naruto was a lot less worried now. Satori was an issue for devils, but honestly, once you knew his weakness he wasn't super horrible to deal with. He would still be an exceedingly strong opponent, but the last time he fought Satori it was with a handicap. And now he was still handicapped, but he had 3 months to figure out a plan to deal with the monster. So, we should just do nothing? Be thankful it wasn't Satori possessing Morio, while in possession of Ribi. Now that would be a terrifying combination. Naruto could only imagine how horrible that abomination of a monster fusion would be. If Satori possessed Morio's body, and teamed up with the Ribi, that would be an unholy combination with an exponential increase in power. Also, just send Satori this message. The Jinchuriki is 100 times stronger than when he beat you. Naruto told an absolute fucking lie to Sirzex. Sirzex smiled wide at that great news. If the Jinchuriki was even stronger than before, they had nothing to worry about. He felt a joy and relaxation overtake him, since he could deliver great news to his fellow leaders. Wonderful. Yeah, as long as Sirzex truly believes that, it would scare the shit out of Satori. I bet the Shinigami sent Satori here to make my life hell. And told him I don't have chakra anymore. If he thinks that Sirzex is telling the truth when he passes that message, it should mess with him. Naruto would guess that this was the Shinigami's way of being a petty bastard for getting his ass kicked and losing a few teeth. Sirzex hung up. So, who is this Jinchuriki? Not telling. Naruto told Rias, who pouted. Please? Nope, Not while Akano, Kaneko, and Yuto are in the room. They haven't earned my trust. Especially the one with the cute butt. Naruto wondered if that statement would cause the three to try and figure out who the one with the cute butt was. They all looked at their own butts, as if trying to figure out if it was them or not. He just wanted to mess with them. Not bad. Shouldn't you be training to defeat Satori? Ghopire asked Naruto, while Naruto just looked at himself in the mirror, trying on a new outfit. You should wear a skirt. Ghopire pointed out to Naruto, since he really wished Naruto would wear some cute clothes. I'll think on it. We only have 3 months until you fight Satori, shouldn't you focus more on that? Ghopire asked, since in the end it was down to Naruto to defeat the extinction-level monster. Nobody else could conquer its weakness easily, and from what Naruto had told him, the strength of the host could even enhance the strength of Satori itself. What, the host was super strong? Exactly, 3 whole months. And I am training right now. Naruto showed off as he took off his shirt and showed Ghopire the shadow bondage that he was wearing under his clothes. Ropes made out of shadows that were binding him tightly enough that his flesh was being pushed in. He lowered his shirt back over his body. How is that training? Ghopire didn't understand that at all. Look carefully. Naruto showed the shadow bondage again, and Ghopire lifted his shadow form up to get a closer look. He looked more closely, and he could see that each rope was actually several smaller ropes that were tightening and loosening around each other. Ghopire looked even closer, and saw that each time a part of the rope moved, it severed part of the shadow ropes, and then tied it up. I'm multitasking while causing myself discomfort. It's something I can do at school. Naruto lowered his shirt again. Why bondage? Why not, as long as I don't get it too tight, it won't hurt that much, and nobody has to know about it if it is under my clothes. Naruto shrank the shadow ropes so that they were no thicker than a pencil, and tightened them more so that they would not show at all. Also, working on a new arrow magic. Shadow bondage. Naruto explained. His control over shadows could improve, and if he practiced the technique on himself before using it on others, he could see the weak points and improve them. Naruto rolled up the right sleeve of his shirt. Ghopire watched as their arm moved at an unnatural angle as some of the shadows making up the rope disconnected from each other, connected to different shadows, and tightened up to force the arm to change position. Ropes that can sever themselves, repair themselves, and force the body to take poses against the enemies will, while being very uncomfortable, to downright painful. Naruto showed that off by making the shadows form knots along the ropes. He winced in pain when the knots dug into his skin. Before he undid them, he rolled his sleeve back up. I'll say, Jesus Christ bless you. Ow. Worth it. Naruto spoke a blessing towards Akano when she entered the room at some point without announcing herself at all. Akano grabbed her head in pain when Naruto extended a blessing towards her. Ow. Why do you do that? You know that devils can't praise God, ask for blessing from God, or speak any lines from the Bible. Akano knew that Naruto was fully aware of what he did, and how it also hurt him for offering a blessing. Yet he still did it anyway, knowing that it would hurt both of them. Naruto looked at Akano. Ow. Naruto and Akano said together. It worked even if he thought it, which was even funnier as Naruto laughed under his breath. Bucko wanted me to, who? Rias. Rias wanted me to ask you about what these are. Akano pulled out a small stack of papers with unknown markings and drawings on it. Akano blinked and looked down at herself, before she looked at her shadow and saw a rope coming up from it and wrapping around her leg. She was rooted in place as Naruto took the papers from her and kept them neatly together. She just smiled at him. Naruto gave her a disgusted look when he saw that smile. Ooh. Excuse me. Akano was genuinely confused at him when she read his expression and body language, curious about why he was looking at her like that. She was now very curious about what he knew about her that was causing him to stare at her this way. She paled very slightly and her smile fell when she got a clue. Oh. So you know. And you hate me for my blood. That's fine, I hate my blood, Akano started, before stopping. The disgusted look wasn't on his face anymore for some reason. She smiled, and the disgusted look appeared again, before her smile dropped slightly, only for him to seem less disgusted. Ooh. Stop doing that, it makes me sick. Naruto couldn't stand that fakeness anymore. There was little more that he hated on a person than a fake smile, and Akano had one of the fakest smiles that he had ever seen. Stop doing. Smiling? Fake smiling. It's a lot more obvious than you think it is. Your smile doesn't reach your eyes. If you aren't happy, don't smile. I can't stand people like you, Naruto told her. Wasn't his job to spare her feelings. You hate me. Because my smile is fake? Akeno could list a lot of reasons for somebody to hate her. She was a sadist, she was a masochist, she was powerful, she was also weak. She was a hybrid of a fallen angel and human turned into a devil. She was slightly famous with a nickname of her own. She never expected somebody would hate her for such a strange and pitiful reason. I'm in a good mood. No, you aren't. Are you telling me what mood I'm in? Akeno asked him with a rising tone to her voice. If you were in a good mood, then your smile would reach your eyes. It doesn't, and your smile seems fake to me. I can't stand people who lie to themselves. I also can't stand people who wait for others to fix their shit for them. Naruto rolled his papers up and smacked her on the forehead for it. Look at Gasper. He never tries to be anything but what he is. I'm a shadow of my former self, and I love it. I've never been happier than to not have to worry about others. Gasper spoke up. He was at the happiest he had ever been in his life. He felt safe not being in control, and he no longer had to worry about the stares of others or their opinions. He could put all responsibility onto Naruto, and just let Naruto make all their choices for them. I'm a dirty, foul-blooded, oh no, she's going to go into her backstory with me. Fuck. This was why I wanted to avoid talking to her. Why did I have to open my big mouth? Naruto sighed to himself as Akeno frowned with sheer hatred towards herself. She looked at her hands with disgust, and he sighed in annoyance and faced her. Exactly what he wanted to avoid. I'm a wicked woman. My blood is tainted by my fallen angel father's blood. I hate this body of mine. It's wrong, dirty, and evil. So what? So what? Akeno was stunned by the complete lack of reaction to her big reveal that she was a part of their enemy species. She looked right into his eyes, and she saw that he genuinely didn't seem to care about her species. So what? Akeno repeated again, asking him for more information. Naruto sat down on the floor and started to go through his papers. So what? It's that simple. I don't care what you are. The only reason I don't like you is your fake smile, and how you give off the aura of a person waiting for a big strong hero to rescue her. Everything that I don't like about you are completelty and your power to control. Naruto didn't want to go into much more detail than that. He didn't want to fix her trauma, he wanted her to fix it herself so that she didn't develop some kind of hero attachment to him. You can't control your blood, but you can control everything else wrong with you. Everything else? Akeno took a step back. Well, for starters, Rias told me you're a pervert who enjoys tormenting people. Fix that. You're a pervert who tied himself up in bondage. Akeno responded, taking genuine offense to that. She didn't want to be called a pervert by a pervert. I mean, I am a pervert, but you are in no position to judge me for that. Naruto poked her leg. Hey, perverted techniques can and have saved entire worlds. It is always a good idea to have a few of them in your arsenal. You're a pervert for your own amusement. I'm a pervert. Wait. Why am I arguing this? Naruto didn't see why he was getting defensive over it. He knew the value of his techniques, so it wasn't like he had to defend them to her. Anyway, you hate being a fallen angel. Well, too fucking bad. Too fucking bad. Akeno was getting pissed. Yeah, too fucking bad. Whatever issues you have with your blood, you can't change them. If I were to guess, it was your daddy who was a fallen angel. And since you joined Rias, I would bet your mother died, and you hate your daddy because he wasn't there. Naruto saw Akeno physically take a step back. She looked like he had just punched her. She was speechless. How? How could he guess that? I can't even say he doesn't know me. He seems to. He seems to know me better than anyone else. Akeno thought as she took another step back. She had no words to argue, and the anger drained from her body in sheer disbelief at how easily he seemed to be able to just explain her own past to her. She grabbed her arm and squeezed it, not looking at him in the eyes, but he wasn't looking at her either. How could he guess that? How could he guess that? Stop reading my mind. Akeno could respond to that. I'm not. You're just that obvious. No, I can't be that obvious. How is he still doing this? I feel naked, like he is revealing everything. He can he really see right through me? Spot on. Naruto stated with a slowly growing grin. You didn't marry a Hyuga and not pick up a thing or two out reading a person's eye language. He could never get anything over his wife, and neither could his children. He was also a father, so he just knew some of the tells that teens had when they were thinking. He even had experience reading people just like Akano. Akano was crying. But how? How do I fix it? I hate him, I hate my father so much. He abandoned me, and my mother. He abandoned us and she died. Why did he do that? Naruto asked her. I don't know. There is your answer. You don't know anything. You're an ignorant little girl at heart. So just accept it, and accept yourself. If you hate the hand that you've been given, then fight to change it. You have friends who love you now, so be thankful and do everything you can to protect what you do have. Your mom is dead. Your dad is gone. You carry their blood in your veins. You can't change that. So don't even try. Naruto just flat out spoke. Just give up. No matter how hard you work, you will never change those things, so work harder to protect, and cherish the things precious to you now. If you hate your fallen angel blood, then use that blood to protect. If you hate your dad, big deal. Use the powers he passed down to you anyway. Naruto told her as he summoned a shadow and made a pillar. He punched it with his fist, and Akano winced when she heard a crack. Naruto broke his hand. Why? A point. My hand will heal Akano, wounds heal. But, Naruto punched the pillar again, and Akano winced when she heard a second cracking sound as more bones in his hand broke. If I keep abusing myself, it won't heal. Accept your weakness, accept who you are. And strive to do better. Naruto stated as the bones in his hand started to visibly heal under his skin. He rose his hand up, and shadow spikes came out of the ground and pierced the pillar of shadows, breaking it. Akano didn't get it. You didn't punch it and break it. Because, I'm not strong enough to break it with my fist. So I will use the gifts given to me instead. If you try and go through life thinking I don't need this power, I'll abandon it and do things my way. You will never find a spiritual balance, and you will only be hurting yourself. Accept your weakness and embrace your strength. Naruto watched as she looked at her hands again. Akano was silent. How? Just do it. How? Akano repeated her question to him, a desperate look in her eyes. The tears were still falling down her face. Figure it out. How? You're telling me to just do something without telling me how to do it. I can't just figure it out. I've lived for years with this issue, it isn't so simple as do it. Akano snapped and her tears flew off her face when she shook her head, angry that he wouldn't answer her question the way that she wanted him to. She looked at him, she expected him to be angry with her for snapping at him. He wasn't even looking at her. He took his papers and walked right by her. No, it is that simple. You need to sit down, and reflect on your issues, and what you can do about it, and then figure out what you want to do, and how you are going to do it. I'm not going to just give you the answers. Figure it out. Naruto didn't embrace her in her tears. My advice is to stop lying to yourself first. Naruto left the room with that. Akano screamed at the top of her lungs and cried when he left the room. 3 days later Naruto was writing in a journal, while studying a book on magic. Akano sat down next to him, and Rias watched her friend look over Naruto's shoulder. Here, let me help you relax. Akano rubbed Naruto's shoulders, a much happier smile on her face. She had a slightly healthier glow to her skin, and Naruto seemed rather annoyed at the moment. He stood up and walked across the room, and sat down in the chair only big enough for one person to sit on. Akano got up and followed him. This is kind of hilarious. Rias held back a giggle as she watched Akano doting on Naruto. Akano had approached her and told her what Naruto told her, and she cried. A lot, and vented everything. She vented out her sorrows, thanked her for everything she had done to give her a new life, and promised to help her and protect her. Now she seemed attached to Naruto though, the person who forced her to come to terms with her issues. Me and my big mouth. Naruto knew that this would happen if he spoke with Akano. He just knew it. He knew that his big mouth wouldn't be able to keep shut around Akano, and he would end up calling her out on her bullshit. He just knew that she was the kind of girl that would fall in love with the first person who made her feel better about herself, yet instead of thinking about that and keeping his mouth shut, he had to be a motor mouth. Here, let me help you. Akano sat down in his lap. Woman. Do you even know how much bigger you are than me? I can't read with you in my lap like this. Naruto told Akano, since her body simply had more mass than his did. Not to mention her ass covered a good portion of his lap. He pushed her off of him and back to her feet, but she just seemed perfectly fine with that as well. She stood moved behind the chair, and leaned over it so that her boobs were on his head. He couldn't see the book. You see, Akeno stopped when Naruto stood up out of the chair and walked over to the couch, before he laid down on it and left her no room to sit down. Peeved. Rias was enjoying this show. Me and my big mouth. Naruto whispered to himself when Akeno just sat on the arm of the chair, and placed her hand on his forehead, rubbing it gently. Why did he inherit his mother's big mouth? Why couldn't he inherit his father's mouth? I see what you meant now. But you did bring this on yourself. Rias stated to Naruto, watching him just have to deal with Akeno's affection as her new favorite hobby. Naruto told her that this was a reason why he didn't want to talk to Akeno, and now she was realizing that he had been spot on. Speaking of bringing stuff on yourself. I never got an explanation for what those strange drawings were. The answer depends. How do you like your kneecaps? I enjoy them very much. This was a nice conversation. Rias accepted that answer with a smile. She dropped her question at that, since his statement showed that he had no intention of explaining what the drawings were. Do they have anything to do with Satori, even if you don't want to tell me what they do? Rias asked Naruto. Nope, they have nothing at all to do with Satori. I see. Thank you very much. Rias accepted that, and then she started to work on her homework. She nodded to Yuto when he entered the room, followed by Kaneko, who seemed a little confused when Naruto got up and walked across the room, only for Akeno to follow behind him. She's in Louvre. Rias explained to their confusion. What? I opened my big fat mouth. Well, if you want to keep your mouth shut, I do have a ball gag. I'm going to just not be here for a little bit. Naruto sank into the shadows, and moved out of the room as his shadow just vanished completely. Akeno walked towards the window, opened it up with a smile. I'm going to go help him out. Have fun. Rias waved Akeno out as she jumped, and went on her way to track down where Naruto was going to emerge from the shadows. If he isn't working on anything for Satori, then is he not the Jinchuriki, and really just knows who he is? Or is he the Jinchuriki guy? Did he know the Jinchuriki when he was alive? Wait. Isn't he from a different world? Rias thought as she tilted her head in confusion. That homework seems hard. Yuto looked at her work. Rias blinked. Oh, it isn't homework from school. I'm studying anatomy. Naruto showed me this very useful technique, but my understanding of the body is kind of lacking. Rias was working on her magical studies, and to do that she wanted to study how the body worked. The Gremory family was famous for their high magical ability and their huge library of spells, but she typically only focused on magic that came with the other half of her bloodline. She raised her hand, and sparks started to gather between her fingers. She touched Yuto, and he jumped back from the spark. But he didn't collapse, because even if she copied the basic look of the technique, she failed to mess up the electric signals of his body. What was that supposed to do? Not that. Rias responded, and she got back to studying. All she did was give Yuto the smallest of shocks, but the effect of the spell didn't kick in. She had never studied anatomy to the degree she needed to study it. Naruto was bred for murder. I know how to kill people, but not how to do it efficiently. That is the difference. Rias thought to herself. Her power of destruction could be overpowered, and if she ever faced somebody who could vastly overpower her, then her family magic would be useless to her. Yet, Naruto had managed to completely cripple her with nothing more than a simple touch of his hand using a spell that he just thought up on the fly. It was a spell that took so little magic power that even a newborn baby had enough magic to use it, but the mental image was giving her so much trouble. She couldn't get herself into the mindset of how it worked, so in the end the spell kept failing. Not very useful. Kaneko noted. The amount of magic that Rias just used was so little that even babies could produce that amount, so there was no way it could even hurt Yuto in any real sense. I might give up on learning this one, and ask Naruto to tell me stories about other techniques he had seen. Maybe ask him if he could imagine them with magic. Rias sighed and leaned back. She just could not get a clear mental image of how the technique worked, but studying didn't seem to be helping her in that aspect either. She was sure that he had seen a lot of techniques when he was alive. Some of them had to be useful to help her with her problems. She was enjoying herself. So, you were married in your first life? Akeno asked as she watched Naruto working on some kind of technique after school. Getting him to attend classes was rough for everyone, but he was still technically ACEING most of the classes even with his sketchy attendance. He could afford to spend most of his time working on techniques. What would she say if she saw you reading porn like this? Akeno asked with a teasing tone. Naruto hummed and thought. Are you researching for a new technique? Just don't let the kids see it. Naruto quoted exactly what Hinata would have said if she saw his researching. Seeing as she was one of the people who never had an issue with his arrow techniques to begin with, he didn't see her having a problem with him starting his research on arrow magic. Still, do you have to be here for this? Naruto asked her in a dull tone. Reading porn was awkward as hell around a woman for him, because it was perfectly fine if he popped a boner when he was by himself. Technically with Ghopire. Is your little guy nervous? Akeno teased as she leaned in towards Naruto. He gave her the most deadpan look. I'm putting effort into not getting a boner, which is actually hindering the development of my arrow magic. I'm purposely thinking about unsexy thoughts to try and not get a boner, and considering my body as teenager, it's hard to do that and still think about sexy thoughts. Naruto had a lot of conflicted thoughts thanks to how his soul and body didn't match ages. His physical brain didn't match his mental age, and oftentimes he found himself more leaning towards the chemical and hormonal side of it. The body does have an effect on your thoughts. Even an old soul, put in a young body, tends to be affected by it. Naruto tapped the side of his head. Sorry, it isn't your fault, Ghopire, don't worry about it. You're an amazing help, teaching me about vampire abilities. Naruto wouldn't be getting very far in any techniques if it weren't for Ghopire being there to teach him about what his body could do. He looked towards Akeno, who was reading the different research materials. Arrow magazines. Hentai doujins eki manga, ooh. This is hot. Would you like to try it out on me? Akeno leaned forward and pushed her breasts against Naruto, showing off a woman on the pages getting her nipples electrocuted gently. Naruto looked at the magazine she was holding, and saw it was an S&M magazine. It wasn't one of the magazines that he had been researching. Where did that one come from? My personal collection. Akeno admitted, offering her body for experimenting with techniques. Naruto stared at her magazine for a moment, and he took it from her and started to flip through the different pictures. He looked and saw it had articles inside that explained how to safely do certain things and stories from men and women about their experiences with them. You know, we can do much more than experiment with techniques. Akeno licked his ear. She stopped. She stepped back when she saw that he wasn't taking her bait, only pouting at him. Naruto stood up and walked towards a tree, rolling up his sleeve. Vampires can transform their bodies into bats, insects, wolves, cats. Multiple stuff. Let's see. Naruto looked at his hand, and he thought about his past experiences in his old life. Akeno watched him curiously, before she saw the skin on his arm change color. It was purple. He touched his finger against the tree, and the purpleness from his finger spread to the tree itself. There were creaking and horrible sounds from the tree, and the purpleness spread out slowly enough that it was worrying and disturbing. Naruto groaned and transformed his arm back to what it was before. That works. And it is painful. Naruto had transformed just the skin on his arm into insects, a type of insect that he had knowledge of, but his current body had no resistances towards. Thankfully, by transforming his arm back quickly he kept the damage small enough that he could heal. Nano-sized insects that destroy cells. Seems the technique worked. Meaning that I might be able to do something else with them. Naruto kept his sleeve rolled up. He went back to researching, and Akeno just saw the tree was slowly being reduced to nothing as its cells were destroyed. She gulped slightly, since if somebody was touched with that technique, the only way to save their life would be to amputate whatever part of their body got touched by the insects. Seems like his allies and enemies were very sadistic with death. Akeno was fine with sadism and killing, but that level of hateful destruction was just horrible even for her. Constant and never-ending pain until death was not sadism, because a sadist would let you have moments where you could beg for your life while not in pain. Those were insects. Small bugs? Akeno had to ask. She didn't see any bugs. Nano-sized, so to the naked eye, it just looks like your skin gets covered in purple. There we go. If I do this instead. Naruto transformed the skin on his arm back into its purple color. He rolled up the other sleeve of his shirt, and he touched his forearm with his finger. He quickly undid the transformation and gasped, squeezing his legs together and hiding the front of his pants from Akeno. Yeah. That worked. Naruto shivered. It worked, but way too well. Are you okay? The concerned young woman asked as she looked at Naruto, who had a flushed face. Want to help me with shadow bondage? Yes. Akeno responded very quickly. Naruto extended his shadow and touched it to hers, before her own shadow extended up her body and started to tie ropes against her body. Her arms got tied up, before they were yanked behind her back. Shadows wrapped around her head and covered her eyes, restricting her ability to see. Naruto didn't hesitate to look at her, because the way she was getting tied up was sexy. Still, he had a different focus. Turning my skin into those insects. Bad move, and changing them from destruction into that was a worse move. Naruto started to undo his pants, and he took them off once Akaino could no longer see. He changed the insects from destroying cells, into an different effect that more fit what he wanted out of them. Their stingers would inject chemicals into cells that could cause intense feelings of pleasure. Chemically induced orgasm. By touching somebody with his body in his current state, it caused a near-automagic orgasm once the chemicals injected reached the brain. Naruto took his underwear off and threw them away, before putting his pants back on. He rolled his sleeves back down, before he gasped in shock when he felt an intense wave of pleasure overtake his arms. Fuck. Well, that isn't great. I don't know, this feels great to me. My boobs are being squeezed so tight. And this rope digging into my back door is kind of doing it for me. Akaino disagreed with his statement. Naruto on the other hand, touched his untransformed finger to his arm. He hissed in pleasure when he felt his body want to orgasm, but not being able to simply because he wasn't physically capable of shooting anything just yet. A dry orgasm. Naruto sighed and felt that both of his arms were injected by the chemical change, and since the chemicals were injected directly into the cells themselves, the effect he just caused would become long-lasting. Possibly permanent, which meant that anything so much as touching his arms would be enough to cause him to climax. He transformed his arms into bats and had them fly around a little, before they came back and transformed back into his arms. He sighed in relief when he rolled down his sleeves and felt nothing. Okay, so I can undo the negative effects on myself by transforming my cells. But the problem is that I can't use this technique without making myself come. Naruto would have to label the insects he created with his vampire ability as forbidden. A technique that could so seriously inhibit himself was of no use to him at all. Even more so when the only way to undo it would be to transform part of his body and transform it back. 1/10 as an arrow magic. Naruto labeled it so low. It was also possibly a permanent change, and putting a person in a constant state of orgasm would cause them to be unable to sleep. The state would end in a quick, insanity-filled death, if the orgasms alone didn't kill them. I rated a 8/10. Can you make the shadows around my crotch tighter? It hurts a little, but I think it would feel better if it really hurt. Akaino made her request, unable to see what Naruto was actually talking about. Naruto stared at her. I just offered so that I could hide the fact I came from her. Is she seriously enjoying this? Naruto tightened the ropes to the point that Akaino was forced to contort her body to the shape the ropes forced out of her. Saliva dripped from her chin as she enjoyed herself, and he could see her skirt was flipped up by the ropes. The ropes dug so deeply into her crotch and butt that the wedgie had to be insanely tight. Are you okay? Naruto asked Akaino, actual concern in his voice. Pop, crackle, ooh. That was so good. My back. You're just popped my entire back. Akaino felt an amazing tension just get released from her back when there was a crackle of multiple pops that went up her spine. She wiggled on her feet, finding it hard to find her balance at the moment, before all of the shadows constricting her body vanished, restoring her sight. She sighed in both relief and disappointment to being freed from her bondage. She saw the shadows had left indents all over her body that were starting to fade away. All of the tension in her back was gone though, and she felt her shoulders were so much looser after having gotten that experience. She bounced her breasts up and down, and all of the pressure that caused in the knots in her back were bone. She felt relief. Did we both come? You came too? Akaino asked as she leaned up against Naruto. She had a small sparkle to her eyes, feeling a genuine excitement from his slip of the tongue. Did you come from your inner sadist taking joy in tying me up? Or did you come from your little piggy masochist side wishing you were me? Akaino was salivating at prospect that he was just like her. Just so you know, I'm both. We can have a lot of fun. This means our compatibility is through TRHE roof. Akaino pushed even further. Ooh. What? This is amazing, you can tie me up. And then when we both come, we can take turns. You can tie me up, and then I can spank you like a bad sissy. Before you return the favor by choking me until I almost pass out. And we can end the session with me pegging you. There are so many things we can do. Akeno pushed him up against a tree, both of her arms on either side of him as she towered over him. She was breathing heavily at all of the different things that she could do to unleash her inner sadist and inner masochist. There were so many forms of dirty, perverted things they could do with each other if they were both sadists and masochists. The hell is pegging? It is where I wear a strap on and fuck you. And that isn't all. There are so many ways to experiment. I bet you could even make some arrow magics out of it. How about it, wanna partner up? Were those hearts in her eyes, or was he just imaging it, because she looked like her pupils were hearts with how heavy she was breathing? He was sure he was imagining it, but regardless was the fact that Akeno seemed to have had some kind of very dangerous switch in her head flipped. Yes. This is my chance. I can use this. I can use out shared perversions to make him fall for me, and I can play out every dirty fantasy one have ever had. Akeno stopped when she noticed that Naruto was sinking into the shadows of the tree. He fully sank into the shadow, and she watched as the shadow started to exit the area. Wait. Naruto. Come back. Danger. It's okay, I'll be kind of gentle the first few times, and I've got queen traits, so I'm durable enough to handle all sorts of things. That sounds kind of fun to watch. Gasper, now is not the time for you to take advantage of the fact you can't feel pain. See, Gasper agrees. We outvote you. I vote that you stop running, and use those small hands to fist me, then I can paddle you with my hands. I second that. Veto. Hot. But veto, in the end, Rias had to get involved to calm Akeno down. Akeno's affection grew 3 times that day. Yoga? Hell yeah, yoga class. Naruto responded to Gasper as he got dressed in loose-fitting clothes, since for a technique he was developing, he wanted to see about learning some of the yoga from this world. He asked Rias to sign him up for a yoga class after school, and he also wanted to test his new body's flexibility with yoga some. Nothing was a better check of your body's limit than putting it to the test after all. But with my luck, Rias signed her entire peerage up. At yoga, for bonding. Rias spoke in tight yoga clothes, showing off all of her curves and revealing the crack of her ass with just how tight her clothes were. She wasn't the only one with super tight, revealing clothes. Akeno had a matching outfit. You look gay, Naruto stated to Yuto. Yuto was also wearing extremely tight clothes, including shorts that might as well be as tight as a Speedo. Yuto had the decency to blush at his own appearance, before he pointed his finger towards Rias, who had picked out his yoga clothes, just like she picked out his swimsuit. She, like a total twink. Also. Dude. Are you trying to kill your balls? Naruto rubbed the bridge of his nose. Kaneko was wearing a loose-fitting sweatshirt, and loose-fitting sweatpants as well, and she just sent Naruto a thumbs up with a blank face. He turned to face her, and sent her a thumbs up with an equally blank face. Says you. Yeah, says me. The 150 centimeters half-vampire. Girly boy who looks like he might as well not have a penis. That should tell you something dangerous if I am saying you look like you cracked nuts between your cheeks. Naruto fired back at Yuto when he tried to make a comeback, and after that he was speechless. Now, just a simple test, since this is the advanced class, who can put one leg above their head while still standing? After yoga, everything hurts. Yuto hated his clothes and his life at the moment, since he could barely do even a single pose. He looked towards Rias, who did more than he could, but less than Akeno when it came to how flexible she was. He then looked towards Kaneko, who never once struggled with even a single pose. Everyone was sweating, except for Kaneko. Okay. Easy enough, I should be flexible enough to do what I'm thinking. Naruto thought to himself, having tested his body's ability to be pushed into awkward positions. You know, guys like a girl who is flexible. So good on you, Rias. Naruto stated to Rias, since she was still more flexible than the average person. Despite how endowed she was in many aspects, she was much better off than her body type would suggest. Oh. Thanks. And what technique was this research for? Rias was panting slightly, having worked up a sweat. She looked on in jealousy as Kaneko seemed like she was unbothered by what happened. I like a guy who is flexible, so that works even better. Gotta say, I was a little turned on when you were able to do the Karnapidasana. Akeno whispered in his ear. You got turned on by the fact I can put my head between my knees. Duh. Because that means you can wrap your legs around my boobs, while I give your little guy a special treat. And you can give my tight pink some licking. Standing 69 with added difficulty. Sounds painful and embarrassing, no thanks. Anyway, to answer your question, Rias. The technique I want to make would rip my body to shreds if I'm not flexible enough. Strength-enhancing technique that I can only use in this small, girly form," Naruto stated as he looked down at his body. Vampires were stronger than humans, and his half-vampire body was enhanced by the body of a devil, which brought him up to a vampire in physical strength, but at the same time he was lacking when compared to the others in the group who were either full-blooded devils like Rias, super-enhanced like Kaneko and Akano. Well, Yuto was lacking in physical strength when compared to the others as well. "Oh, do tell. How does it work?" Rias found herself extremely curious. "Nope. Later, take a deep breath." Naruto allowed a ton of extremely small shadow tentacles to travel up his body and wrap around his flesh tightly enough, while also wrapping around each other. The shadows formed muscle fibers that bound his flesh like bondage, wrapping up his legs before getting to his shorts and going underneath them. His legs were fully covered, with shadow muscle fibers acting like a second skin on top of his skin. Arrow shadow bondage. He had been training with controlling shadows, and then he trained to be able to control multiple thin fibers of shadow at the same time. After that, he trained to wrap them around each other while still controlling them, before he worked on being able to wrap them around his own body. Naruto felt the shadows go up his torso, before they got right to his shoulders and down his arms, until they went to the tips of his fingers. Most of his body was covered in them. He couldn't move his body at all. The shadows were so dense on his body that it was just physically impossible for him to move. Not his toes, or his fingers. He was unable to move his physical body, not even if he truly wanted to. The shadows were so tight and constricting on him, that the only way for him to not be crushed under their weight would be to have a thin body. "That is so cool. So, can you move?" "Crack, yeah, but not with my body. Instead, I move by controlling the shadows, the same way I controlled the bondage in Arrow Shadow Bondage." Naruto felt something break in his shoulder when he had his arm move incorrectly. He frowned and hissed in pain, before his shoulder started to heal and he moved around. Shadow muscle mode. S&M mode. Naruto laughed at his own joke. He punched a tree and shattered the trunk with the punch, with the recoil from the punch being spread out evenly through his shadows and his body. The half of his shirt belonging to his right side got blasted off by the shock though, showing that the dark shadows covered everything under his shirt. Naruto punched his own fists together, and all of his clothes blasted off of his body, and he looked at his own technique. "Does that hurt?" The shadow bondage is both extremely dense, but also the bondage itself disperses shockwaves pretty well. It enhances my ability to withstand blunt force. But while using this ability, I can't use long-range shadows. Naruto stated as he ran across the field at a speed faster than his body was normally capable of running. He jumped and kicked a tree, putting a hole through the truck and landed on the other side. His leg was bent backwards, before the shadow bondage snapped it back in place so that it could heal. "That had to hurt," Ghopire stated. "I need to completely relax my body, because if I get tense, then moving the shadows can twist my muscles and break my bones. It does hurt, but I can afford to mess up a little." Naruto lifted up the trunk of the tree, holding the tree above his head, before he threw it. "This body of mine is small, and not built for building muscle. So if I can't build muscle inside of my body, well, I will just wear them like armor instead." Naruto lightly jogged in place. This idea came from bondage. Well, yeah, Arrow Shadow Bondage is the parent technique to SM mode. By learning bondage, I became to experiment with wrapping my body up to test my endurance for it. Then, by seeing how flexible I was, I could see if I could stay relaxed here. Naruto started to throw out shadow boxing punches. Not being capable of moving makes it easier to use the armor like a weapon. Naruto looked down at Ghopire. He showed his arm trying to move inside of the bondage, and then he made the shadows move to actually move his arm. "How bad does it hurt though?" Ghopire was worried for Naruto's pain tolerance. "This couldn't be healthy. As long as I can focus all of my concentration on the Arrow Shadow Bondage holding the mode together, then it doesn't have to hurt. This mode boosts my strength, speed, and durability, but makes it impossible to use magic or long-range shadow attacks. If I split my focus, I take damage, since even a single stray throat can cause me to break every bone in our body." Naruto already figured that out before he activated it for the first time. The boost to hand-to-hand combat is immense, but every technique has both its upsides and downsides. The other downside, I can't use it around Akano, Naruto stated with a frown. Why not? Because once I drop SM mode. Well, at least I suspect that once I stop using this, the toll it will take will leave me physically drained. Barely able to move. Naruto didn't know if it was for sure, but he could feel mental exhaustion already hitting him from the extreme concentration that it was going to take him. But, Naruto stated as he placed his hands together. More shadows came out from his shadow, and they started to form a second layer of skin-tight bondage shadows that covered his body. The shadows were even tighter than before, forming a second layer. Are you okay? No. Just standing right now is extremely painful. This is the next stage, SM mode version 2. It creates a second layer of SM mode, and fuses it into the first layer. The increase in ability doesn't add together, it multiplies. But so does the strain. Naruto could hear his bones creaking under the pressure. And the restrictions are even harsher. As it is, this version isn't usable. If I manage to hit somebody, I could knock their head off. But if I miss and lose focus, the entire mode will fade away. Also, there is no downgrade. Since second layer fuses to the first layer. Once I enter the mode, to go down to regular SM mode, I would need to turn it off. Naruto showed this by making all of the armor vanish. Naruto collapsed onto his back. Okay, are you okay? My ribs are broken, my arms and legs are broken, and I'm pretty sure I'm paralyzed. But the mental strain is so immense, it becomes impossible to stop it from damaging me. Meaning SM mode V2 has a strict time limit before I lose the ability to fight. Naruto felt his body slowly healing from the immense damage of having nearly all of his bones broken. Shadows came out of his shadow and wrapped around his body super lightly. Naruto sank into the shadows. In Naruto's room. Naruto left the shadows with his face down, on his pillow. I won't be able to move for a little bit. I call it SM mode, but honestly, I haven't mastered it yet. I need to improve my mastery over S&M style bondage, and increase my ability to control shadows subconsciously. Naruto had little actual experience with bondage. Hinata was not a kinky girl. Just a very stacked, very horny one. She wasn't that freaky, which was why his experience with bondage was purely from a practical ninja rope standpoint. Naruto felt a blanket get pulled over body, and he saw his shadow, Ghopire, was doing it for him. It's pretty amazing that you making a perverted technique led to you making this. Ghopire praised Naruto. He laughed. When you make a perverted technique, you are being creative. When you are feeling creative, you expand your imagination. Imagination can make you unpredictable. When you explore your creative side, you will create things you could have never imagined. Naruto taught Ghopire. Ghopire. Get off our ass. Naruto stated when he felt his shadow sitting on top of his butt. But it's super soft and comfy. Ghopire. Fine, but scratch my back for me too. My bones are healed now, but I feel pins and needles across my whole body. It itches. A lot. Naruto felt a disturbing level of itchiness and unpleasantness from his body. Scritch scratch, oh yeah. That's the spot. Lower. If they didn't share a body and shadow, this moment would be very awkward. Chapter end. The chapter is end here now. We will meet with another chapter, so don't forget to subscribe our channel for more content like this.